Last year, the Falcons and Raiders got clowned for drafting Michael Penix Jr. and Brock Bowers, but who's laughing now? They were the two most criticized picks of the 2024 NFL Draft. Atlanta took Penix at 8 when they had just paid Kirk Cousins $180 million. And Bowers, the Raiders wanted a quarterback. They had just taken a high-end tight end in the draft. Fast forward to today, and those bad picks look like franchise cornerstones. And if you're not with me at franchise cornerstones, they're at least the two picks that had the best value in last year's draft. If Penix were in this year's draft, he'd be number 1 overall, and I don't think I'd be alone in that. And Bowers had the best rookie season for a tight end ever. They've proven everybody wrong. Let's take a trip down memory lane. I still remember exactly where I was when Penix got drafted. I was sitting at a hotel bar having a drink with my dad before a wedding reception in Arizona.
Michael Penix Jr.
Well, there it is.
Quarterback, Washington.
And right when the pick went up on the TV screen, I knew two things were true. One, that was a great pick. Loved the pick, loved the value of the pick. And I also knew right away that I was going to be in the minority. And I opened up social media, and sure enough, right away, it was like, this is the craziest pick. I can't think how this makes sense at all. Honestly, it was kind of similar to, this is a bit of a stretch, but I'll go there. The reception was like a little bit like the Luka Mavs Lakers trade. Not in the sense that, hey, Penix is the level that Luka was, but the overwhelming consensus was like the Falcons are absolutely out of their mind. And as a result, I pulled out my phone and did like an instant reaction video stating why I thought it made sense. I'll have to link it up above because I knew that I was going to be in the minority, but I loved the pick. Loved it because if you put Michael Penix in this year's draft, I think he is clearly the first quarterback taken in the draft. I don't think that would be a minority opinion. I think that'd be the consensus. Even just looking back to last year when all three of those top quarterbacks were in the same conference, everyone this time last year would have taken Penix over Shador and Cam Ward. Everyone. And I know, hey, people grow. Cam Ward got in a new spot, but still, I also love the pick because you only get so many cracks at taking top end first round caliber quarterback talent. Like you're only going to be up there drafting that high only so many times. Like look at the Falcons this year. If they hadn't taken Penix, they'd be in absolute no man's land. Picking at 15 probably would have been in the Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Sam Darnold sweepstakes. Shoot, maybe they would have given a call to Geno Smith and the Seahawks. Either way, it would have been in no man's land. They knew that when they signed Kirk to that $180 million contract that there was risk coming with that. Not only because of Kirk's age, but because of the Achilles. And last year showed that he was not fully himself. And the counter argument to that might be, oh, well, Max, you can't hedge your bets. Like if you're going to commit to Kirk, you got to go all in and support him with drafting pieces around him. But that's the thing with the Falcons sitting at 8, they were sitting in no man's land. When you look at the guys that they could have gotten instead of Penix, I mean, what Falcons fans wanted edge rusher. So it would have been Dallas Turner or Jared Verse. Jared Verse is the one counter argument to my greatest value picks of last year's draft, because I do think Verse at 19 to the Rams had incredible value. But the reality is they probably would have taken Dallas Turner. And Falcon fans, how would you be feeling now if you had Dallas Turner right now and no hope for your future at the quarterback position? Even if you had Jared Verse on your squad right now and you're like, yo, we found a great young edge rusher, you still would be clueless at quarterback, which that's why, hey, if you're criticizing and say, hey, Max, don't get ahead of yourself. Like we still got to wait to see what Penix can do. I still think it's a great value pick regardless of how Penix plays out, because we all know the numbers. When you take a first round quarterback, it's going to work out 50% of the time. It's not going to work out 50% of the time, but you have to be in a position where you're giving yourself legitimate shots at finding a high end franchise quarterback. And that's what the Falcons did. And man, if this works out for the Falcons, it could change how GMs approach the draft. One, it could go much more of an NBA style where it's like, hey, you got to draft the best available, period. That's not even necessarily at quarterback. Obviously, if you have an established running back, you don't need two established running backs. If you have Saquon Barkley, you're not drafting Ashton Genty in the first round. But I think football's been trending this way for a little while now, that if you have Aaron Donald as a defensive tackle, sure, you might not need a defensive tackle, but if the clear best player on the board is at defensive tackle, draft him, put him next to Aaron Donald, and that immediately helps all 5 other front 7 players around him. When we look at the reaction from the Penix pick a year ago, you had Falcons Twitter saying, Penix has the traits to succeed in the NFL, but he is the 6th quarterback on my board. This feels early. Last year spoiled us. 6 legitimate starting quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm not as high on JJ McCarthy. I think the consensus has been pleasantly surprised with the Bo Nix, but I love Penix. And so did Raheem Morris. He was quoted saying, Kirk Cousins is going to help us win short term, so we don't have to be in this spot in the future, and we had to address our future now. That speaks to the fact and the mindset, if you're a GM, you're only getting so many cracks at drafting high-end quarterback talent. Sure, you can be the team that maybe takes a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round if he slides sides and whatnot. But that is, to me, that's not really a strategy. That's luck. This is a strategy. And speaking of taking best available, that's what the Raiders pick was with Brock Bowers last year.
Tight end, Georgia.
All right. So Brock Bowers is going to the Raiders. And what do you think of this pick?
Well, this is value here.
I think it's easy now to sit here and be like, oh, well, we had Brock Bowers as our third best player in the draft. Like, of course, it was a no-brainer for the Raiders to take him at 12 or 13, wherever they took him. But that was not the reaction when they took Bowers. The reaction was, wait a sec, we just invested a top-end pick in Michael Mayer in the draft before in a big-time tight end pick. The criticism was, hey, we need a quarterback, which, speaking of no man's land, the Raiders were in no man's land last year, having missed on all 6 quarterbacks before them. It was get running back, it was get offensive line, it was get corner. Well, when there's a weapon that can change the complexion of your offense, you got to take him. Brock Bowers, 112 receptions last year, led all tight ends and ranked 3rd amongst all receivers. Bowers became only the 3rd rookie tight end ever to surpass 1,000 receiving yards, joining Mike Ditka and Kyle Pitts. And PFF had him at a 85.1 grade, the highest ever for a rookie tight end. And so the big criticism was, you already just drafted a tight end, so why are you doubling down at not necessarily a premier position? And it was, we should have drafted a quarterback. Well, unfortunately, there were no quarterbacks available on the board. And then tight end wise, to me, having a second quality tight end, especially because their skill sets complement each other, I've always thought this, it's not changing the complexion of your offense. It's just adding maybe another 1 or 2 packages of 12 personnel. But Brock Bowers, he can stand up, and he showed this all year. He can be your quasi slot receiver. And bringing this to today, it feels like there could be a world where potentially Travis Hunter drops to a team that doesn't necessarily need a high-end corner or doesn't necessarily need a receiver, but he's that good of a football player. At a certain point, you got to take him. If I was Tennessee and I was the Browns, I'd take quarterback. It's that important of a position. And if you're the Giants sitting there at 3, I know they got to win now. Travis Hunter is that good. It could be that Brock Bowers type of vibe. And then the second learning lesson for teams is you can't stretch on a quarterback, which is funny and ironic because people thought that the Falcons were stretching on Penix. But if you believe that he's your dude, take him. But if you don't have that belief and you're just kind of drafting because you're a team that needs to get a quarterback, that's a bad decision, because look at the situation the Raiders are in now, where they have an exciting young piece in Brock Bowers, and they were able to find a way. Sure, it might have been an element of luck to find their next quarterback in Geno Smith because the stars had to align with his contract in Seattle and Pete Carroll coming in. But every single year, there's a couple quarterbacks that somehow get their second win with a new franchise, and it's possible to build that way. It's better to build that way than stretch on a quarterback and just miss when there was no belief or no structure around him. Who could have the Raiders taken in that draft? You had Taliese Fuaga, the Oregon State tackle, at 14. Fontenot, the Washington tackle, at 20. Quinyon Mitchell was a great corner this year, obviously, coming out of Toledo, but there wasn't that like home run pick. Well, the home run pick ended up being Brock Bowers. Some of the quotes from last year: what a strange first round selection, especially considering tight end was addressed last season with the second round selection of Michael Mayer. That is a hot take. Bowers was ranked highly. And again, if you're a NFL offensive coordinator and get totally out of whack by having 2 capable tight ends, you should not be calling plays in the National Football League. What's fun to think about, though, if we had to redraft based on what we know today, taking into account this year's draft, taking into account what happened last year, if you had to redraft, I'm thinking Penix to the Giants at 5. They knew Daniel Jones wasn't going to work out. They knew that was coming. They did the whole year too late rather than a year too early. At 7, Raiders trade up, I'm saying, to take J.J. McCarthy. The lessons that they learn of the quarterbacks or the teams above them getting those top-end quarterbacks and the Raiders being on the outside looking in, not in this hypothetical redraft. And that would put 8, the Falcons taking Jared Verse. In this alternate universe, that would have been a good pick. And then 9th, to bring this full circle, you have Bowers to the Vikings. Can you imagine the Vikings offense with Brock Bowers? I'm good with how it shook out in real life, but this hypothetical redraft would have been fun. Anyways, wanted to make this video. The 2 most controversial picks from last year, I would argue, are the 2 picks that had the best value looking forward to the 2025 season. We're going to be wrong about this year's draft as well. I'm excited to see what takes those end up being, and I'll be back here next year saying, what were we doing? Anyways, if you like this video, hit the like button down below, hit the subscribe button as well. Coming out with football content every single day. Thanks for hanging.